Good afternoon. We are going to call to order the virtual community hearing of the Public Service Commission of District of Columbia, informal case number 1162, in the matter of the application of Washington Gas Light Company for authority to increase existing rates and charges for natural gas service. I'm Willie L. Phillips, Chairman of the Public Service Commission. I'm joined by Commissioner Richard Beverly. For the record, today is October 20th, 2020, and we are convening this hearing at 2 p.m. in a virtual setting. This community hearing is being held to discuss the application filed by WGL on January 13th, 2020, which requests authority to increase existing rates and charges for gas service in the District of Columbia. The requested rates are designed to collect approximately $200.4 million in total annual revenues, which represents an increase in the company's weather normalized annual revenues of no more than $35.2 million, and would result in an overall increase of approximately 14.7% in revenue collection over and above the collected through current bills. Having trouble talking today. This revenue increase includes $9.1 million associated with natural gas system upgrades currently paid by customers through monthly Project Pipes 1 surcharges. The company also proposes a revenue normalization adjustment in its proposed rate structure. If granted in full, the average monthly effects of the proposed increase on the average residential heating and cooling customer would be approximately $12.86. When you look at your bill, you may wonder what rates are regulated by the Commission and are subject to this rate case. One part is what we call the distribution rate. That's what it costs WGL to deliver natural gas to customers. And WGL is the only company authorized in the district to distribute natural gas. That rate covers meter reading, the pipes, customer service people, repairs, restoration after storms, and everything to operate the delivery system for natural gas in the district. The Commission regulates distribution rates. There's another part of your bill, which is for natural gas itself. The Commission does not regulate natural gas supply except for default natural gas service. And then there's a third part of your bill, which is taxes, surcharges, and fees that the DC Council may authorize and or set. Our role as regulators in this case is to ensure that essential natural gas service is available, adequate, provided to all who require it, and that the services will be priced at a reasonable level. Pursuant to its statutory and constitutional rights, the utility is permitted to fully recover the cost of providing this essential service. This community hearing is being held to provide interested persons who wish to comment on the WGL application an opportunity to do so. Representatives of organizations shall be permitted a maximum of 5 minutes for oral presentation. Individuals shall be permitted a maximum of 3 minutes for oral presentation. Written comments, as always, can be filed until November 20th, 2020 by sending them to Brenda Westbrook Sedgwick, Commission Secretary at the DC Public Service Commission, and that email address is psc-commission secretary, one word, @dc.gov. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge Commissioner Richard Beverly for any comments that he might have. We have Commissioner Beverly on the line. I see.
I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today and giving us the benefit of your input. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Beverly. I also want to recognize our statutory party for the District of Columbia, the Office of People's Counsel, Ms. Sandra Matavu-Fry. Would you like to offer any opening remarks before we begin?
Yes, I would. Good afternoon, Chairman Phillips and Commissioner Beverly, as well as all who are joining us today. For the record, I am Sandra Matavu-Fry, People's Counsel for the District of Columbia. Thank you, Commissioners, for convening today's community hearing in formal case number 1162. This is the second community hearing that you've held, believe in 30 days, and in my view, it recognizes or acknowledges your commitment and acknowledgement of the need for community input. Most importantly, I want to thank our community witnesses who have taken time from their busy schedules to participate in this virtual hearing. Your voices are important. During my tenure as People's Counsel, I have remained committed to ensuring that consumers have a voice and a seat at the table when important decisions are made. As with all cases involving rates, charges, and changes to services or broad policy issues, community input is critically important and facilitates the Commission's ability to render a decision that is in the public interest. In discharge of our respective roles, the Office of the People's Counsel and the Public Service Commission are charged with performing a critical public responsibility. Our charge has never weighed so heavily as it does today in light of the coronavirus pandemic. Consumers are faced with hard choices as they guard their health and stretch their dollars. At the same time, we cannot lose sight of our obligation to affirm and advance the environmental, economic, and sustainability requirements of the District of Columbia. And we understand the utility's interest in being financially stable. I look forward to hearing from today's witnesses, and I encourage those who could not attend today's hearing because of other commitments to submit written comments on the date that Chairman Phillips has defined. Thank you again for your time and for the opportunity to appear on behalf of ratepayers of the District of Columbia.
We thank you. We thank the People's Counsel for her presence and for her advocacy, zealous advocacy on behalf of the district residents and businesses. With that, we will now turn our attention to our pre-registered witnesses. And I'll call on the Commission Secretary to call the first witness.
Thank you, sir. The first witness is Matthias Paulston. Mr. Paulston, are you on the line? Okay, we will move to our second witness, Mark Rutherford. Mark Rutherford.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, sir. You may begin.
Thank you, Chairman Phillips and Commissioner Beverly, for the opportunity to testify today about Washington Gas's proposed rate increase. My name is Mark Rutherford. I've lived in D.C. for 19 years. I live in a Southwest D.C. building that sits just 6 feet above sea level. For my neighbors, climate change is not a theoretical idea. It is a threat to the existence of our community. A study entitled Washington, D.C. and the Surging Sea found that because of climate change, over the next 20 years, there's a 50% chance Southwest D.C. will see a 6-foot flood that would destroy 400 homes that house about 1,400 people. If the flood went to 10 feet, it would be far worse, with almost 2,000 homes destroyed and 5,000 people left homeless. The property damage would range from $4.6 billion to $9 billion. I am testifying today because the gas utility's request to raise rates by $35.2 million or 14.7% over current levels is not consistent with DC's climate commitments, and thus the Public Service Commission must reject the proposal. AltaGas, through its local affiliate Washington Gas, proposes to shift some of the costs for its imprudent and largely unsuccessful Project Pipes program into the rate base. An independent audit conducted by Liberty Consulting Group found that Project Pipes was rife with cost overruns and late completion of projects. The audit found, quote, for the dollar spent, management accomplished roughly half of the amount of work anticipated at program outset, unquote. There is no justification for rewarding imprudent and irresponsible management of Project Pipes by moving some of its costs into the rate base, especially during the economic crisis facing the country and the district. The AltaGas proposal would raise rates on nearly all user classes, except for those buying gas to burn it in combined heat and power plants. AltaGas proposes that everyday DC ratepayers subsidize consumption by large commercial CHP users. It is unjust to raise rates on ordinary customers by a whopping 15% while leaving rates unchanged for high volume and often wealthy users that burn gas to produce heat and power. It appears AltaGas's intent is to incentivize the construction and operation of new CHP facilities. That is not consistent with DC's clean energy plans and climate commitments. And it is fundamentally inequitable to ask DC families struggling to pay the bills amid this deep recession to pay more than large commercial polluters. Any rate increase should apply equally to the combined heat and power rate class. As I mentioned at the beginning of my testimony, I live in Southwest DC, one of the parts of the district most vulnerable to sea level rise resulting from the burning of fossil fuels. AltaGas's DC utility rents office space here in Southwest as well. Our difference is that I take climate change seriously. DC's Calgary-based gas supplier wants to squeeze as many ratepayer dollars as possible out of DC residents and maximize profits with no concern about the planet or DC residents. I ask that you protect DC ratepayers, protect our climate, and hold AltaGas accountable to DC's climate commitments by rejecting this rate increase and requiring the utility to transition its business model to renewable energy. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for your testimony. Please call the next witness, Commissioner Secretary.
We're going to call, I'm told that Matthias Paulston is now on the line.
Hi there. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Fantastic. I'm going to put my camera on. It's a little bit more personable. Nice to see you. I appreciate the chance to testify here today. I have 3 minutes.
Yes, you do. Proceed.
Great. Thank you for your time. My name is Matthias Paulston. I'm a resident of Ward 4. I'm deeply concerned about climate change. When we burn the gas that's the subject of this rate case, we create CO2 that worsens the climate crisis, creating more deadly heat waves, storms, droughts, and dangerous flooding. I'm deeply concerned that the district is not making any measurable progress in reducing CO2 emissions from gas, quite to the contrary to our measurable progress on the electricity side. As a result of this lack of progress, I have recently personally disconnected my DC home from the gas supply and electrified all former gas appliances. I heat my home with a heat pump, my hot water with a heat pump water heater, and I cook on a fantastic induction stove. Over the course of a year, our home is fully powered by clean and renewable energy generated right here from the solar panels installed directly on the roof of our home. In this rate case, Washington Gas has filed an application that does not take the district's climate commitments into account at all. Testimony filed in this rate case by the Environmental Defense Fund points out that this rate application fails to take into account the need to modernize the gas planning and rate design process in response to the district's climate commitments. Those things can't be separated. You can't first have a rate plan and then you have a climate plan. Those need to be integrated. I and many other DC ratepayers agree with the many important issues raised by EDF and urge the Commission to order WGL to include them in the current and future rate cases. In particular, the Commission should enhance and augment the gas supply planning process. EDF points out that the current 5-year gas supply planning process is outdated and no longer aligned with the district's climate goals. For example, Washington Gas estimates that gas sales and throughput will continue to increase over the next 5 years, even though the district's energy and climate commitments call for a reduction in energy usage and GHG emissions. The district's climate commitments require a thorough demonstration and consideration of the company's resources, timing, all-in costs, and capabilities to understand the available alternatives and the trade-offs involved in continuing to rely on gas. Such a planning process must be connected to the rate recovery in order to bring the necessary accountability and discipline to utility decision-making in an area of rigorous climate commitments. We also believe, as EDS has stressed, that the Commission should open an integrated planning docket for both WGL and PEPCO. EDF notes that after WGL proposes a long-range gas plan which presents its supply plans in concert with its GHG emission reduction efforts, it will be necessary to coordinate such efforts with the electric utility capabilities and plans, in particular to the extent that Washington Gas may engage in cost-effective beneficial electrification efforts. One way for the company to comply with the district's climate commitments is to invest in electrification, which will require concerted involvement and coordinated planning and execution by both WGL and the electric utility. And finally, we believe that the Commission should require Washington Gas to file a depreciation study aligning the useful lives of gas assets with electrification efforts and the risks of stranded assets. EDF proposes that Washington Gas be required to file a study on depreciation and climate change. The risk here is simply that the assets that it currently seeks to recover costs for may no longer be in place at a time when the district has taken its climate commitment serious and electrifies, leaving future ratepayers with dollars on the hook. The study should include an examination of the potential impacts of climate change policies and laws on average service lives, reserves deficiencies, cost of removal and depreciation rates, and customer bills to use in the company's next rate filing. To conclude, the planet faces a climate crisis. We cannot continue burning fossil fuels if we expect the planet to survive. The old way of doing business for DC's gas utility cannot continue. The DC Council recognized this in 2008, and when it required the Commission to uphold its climate's commitment to carbon neutrality. Consistent with the new mandate, the Commission should require Washington Gas to evolve its business model away from gas combustion, spending millions or even billions of ratepayers' dollars on soon obsolete gas infrastructure. Instead, the Commission should require Washington Gas to evolve its business model, and Washington Gas does not appear to be prepared for such a paradigm shift, so the Commission should lead the utility toward it. One step in that direction is the rejection of this proposed rate case. I appreciate your time and attention, and I'm sorry if I went over, which I probably did.
Well, it's quite all right. I appreciate your comments, and they're welcome. Also, as you're probably aware, I want to remind everyone listening that the Public Service Commission, after the Clean Energy Omnibus Act of 2018, we are required to take into consideration the impacts of global climate change and the district's climate policies in all of our major decisions. And we do intend to do that in this proceeding. So we thank you for your comments, and we think that it will aid us in our ability to carry out our mission. So with that, we'll turn to the next witness. Please call the next witness, please.
Yes, our next witness is Arieisenstadt. Arieisenstadt, are you on the line?
Yes.
Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Phillips and Commissioner Beverly. My name is Arieisenstadt. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am the DC Conservation Advocate for the Audubon Naturalist Society. On behalf of our more than 28,000 members and supporters across the DC metro area, I'm here to offer testimony today in opposition of Washington Gas's request for a 14.7% rate increase. I want to begin by reminding the public of the Commissioner's obligations to district residents. The Commission's mission statement reads, "The mission of the Public Service Commission of the District of Columbia is to serve the public interest by ensuring that financially healthy utility companies provide safe, reliable, and quality utility services at reasonable rates for DC customers." Approving Washington Gas's proposed rate increase defies the Commission's charge to serve the public interest. For a rate increase to serve ratepayers, it should reasonably come with an assurance of improved performance. Washington Gas's performance is directly tied to the qualities of safety, quality, and reliability. As of 2018, Washington Gas's performance must also be measured by their ability to meet merger agreements pursuant to formal case number 1142. Washington Gas has failed to meet these basic performance standards, by which the Commission must judge the utility's current request. As many are aware, natural gas is composed primarily of methane, an extremely potent greenhouse gas. On its own, methane from fracked gas is responsible for 23.1% of greenhouse gas emissions in Washington, D.C. As many are also aware, Washington Gas is legally obligated to support DC's policy commitments for climate. These include 100% electrification, a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2032, and net carbon neutrality by 2050. There is no conceivable way that Washington, D.C. could achieve any of these goals without addressing some portion of that 23.1% of greenhouse gas emissions. This past March, Washington Gas published its climate business plan in response to Merger Agreement 79. This plan does not represent any measurable emissions reductions and will make it virtually impossible for DC to reach its 2032 and 2050 climate commitments. The business plan represents a complete failure to meet Washington Gas's performance requirements to support DC's climate commitments. To demand that district residents pay more for a failing service that disregards public health outcomes is amoral and contradictory to the Public Service Commission's mission. It is also a fact that climate change poses an imminent threat to the health and safety of district residents. Climate change is not a far-off distant problem. Overwhelming flooding and stifling heat are harming Washingtonians today and will continue to tomorrow. Perhaps even more urgently, methane gas today is suffocating Washingtonians in their own neighborhoods and homes. When methane is released into the atmosphere through the natural gas supply chain, it reacts with sunlight to form tropospheric ozone. Ozone is the major component in ground-level smog, which is a major respiratory irritant. When methane is burned in a gas stove, it forms nitrogen dioxide. Nitrogen dioxide is a toxic gas. Children living in homes with a gas stove without proper ventilation are 42% more likely to develop asthma than children living in a home without a gas stove. Tragically, the United States does not have legal requirements for proper stove ventilation, meaning that improper ventilation is the norm. Nitrogen dioxide also causes neurological and cardiological damage in children. In concentrations generated by gas stoves, nitrogen dioxide worsens pre-existing asthma in children and adults alike. The dangerous effects of methane gas cannot be understated given the prevalence of asthma in Washington, D.C. Asthma rates in D.C. are more than twice the national average and are particularly high among Black Washingtonians. This has contributed to disproportionately high COVID-19 death rates, and the deleterious effects of methane on indoor air quality have even more dire consequences during this pandemic. Simply put, Washington Gas is not providing a safe service. Safety is the core to the Commission's mission and is another area in which Washington Gas is failing to perform. The Commission cannot approve a rate increase for a service that continues to endanger DC residents. To conclude, this rate increase request is unwarranted, undeserved, and unjust. It is an irresponsible response to the physical and economic devastation that the COVID-19 pandemic, at the intersection of the climate crisis, has wrought on DC residents. If the Public Service Commission approves this rate increase, it will be complicit in perpetrating a grave injustice. If this increase were going to result in objectively better, safer service from a company that repeatedly falls short of expectations, my testimony would surely differ. And this city deserves much more than Washington Gas is offering. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I just want to once again remind everybody, I appreciate the witness mentioning the mission in the beginning. I want to highlight a portion that I think that he missed. It says that the mission of the Public Service Commission of District of Columbia is to serve the public interest by ensuring that financially healthy utility companies provide safe, reliable, and quality utility services at reasonable rates. And then it goes on to say the portion that you mentioned. I just want to be really clear on this point because I think there's some confusion here. No portion of our mission statement, no portion of our statute bears more meaning than the other. When we have a rate case, when we have a decision to make, we have to balance all of the interests of all of the stakeholders. That includes the utility. That includes people who have means. That includes people who don't. And so I just want to dissuade anybody from the idea that if we approve a rate case, which we haven't decided that yet, but if we do, we're not implicit in anything, doing our job. Please call the next witness.
Thank you. Our next witness is Barbara Briggs. Hi, Ms. Briggs.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Commissioners Phillips and Beverly and Public Service Commission staff for the opportunity to speak to the important decision as to whether Washington Gas Light Company will be permitted to increase its rates by approximately $35 million. My name is Barbara Briggs. I'm a resident of Ward 3 and have been active on energy and policy issues for the last several years, including work in support of the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Act. We in the district need energy for heating and cooking in our homes, businesses, and institutions. And the utility that supplies that energy must be allowed an income stream that will keep it operationally and financially robust. But in exchange, any utility must submit to and align its activities with public policy. Those are the rules of the road, and also commitments that Washington Gas and its parent, AltaGas, made in the merger agreement signed with the district in 2018. Washington Gas promised to develop, quote, a long-term business plan on how it can evolve its business model to support and serve the district's 2050 climate goals. Unfortunately, Washington Gas has failed to fulfill that promise. In fact, WGL's intent, as evidenced by the company's climate business plan released in March, is about as far out of step with the district's climate goals as could be imagined. I'm raising these issues in today's rate case discussion because Washington Gas says it needs more money from its ratepayers to provide services, maintain infrastructure, and provide adequate returns to its shareholders. This might be considered legitimate needs. These might be considered legitimate needs even in the midst of a pandemic if Washington Gas had carried out the work it has agreed to in alignment with the district's plans and policies. It has not, and evidently it does not plan to. To be concrete, the district needs to stop burning fossil fuels, including gas, in order to reach its climate goals and to protect the health of its residents, as Arieisenstadt mentioned. The need for a well-elaborated transition plan, which Washington Gas committed but then failed to develop, is made even more urgent by the poor condition of our old gas infrastructure. But instead of aggressively tackling the tough problem of how to make this transition, Washington Gas has handed in proposals to continue its preferred business as usual, burning methane, and to spend $872 million in the next decade to replace outdated gas infrastructure that actually needs to be mothballed as soon as possible. It is true that the District of Columbia will need to dedicate funds to planning our transition off gas, assessing which portions of our pipe grid are in the worst condition, which neighborhoods can be transitioned first, and how to provide district residents with cleaner, healthier, and in the long run, more economical energy sources. But Washington Gas has proven that they don't have the will to undertake this work. Company management has operated in bad faith, causing us to waste precious time and resources already. I oppose this rate increase Washington Gas is now requesting. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about this with you today.
Thank you for your testimony. Commission Secretary, do we have any more pre-registered witnesses?
No, sir, we don't. And for those who joined the hearing by telephone and would like to speak, please raise your hand by pressing *3. For those who joined via computer, raise your hand, please, and we'll call everyone in turn. Thank you. Sir, we had no respondents.
Okay. Well, once again, we thank you all so much for your comments today at our community hearing. For further information, WGL's application and all subsequent filings in this proceeding can be reviewed on the Commission's website at www.dcpsc.org. Once at the website, open the eDocket tab, click on Search Database, and input FC1162. That's how you search for the docket. Once you enter that, you can see every filing that's been made and every order that's been issued in this proceeding. A recording for today's community hearing will be available tomorrow on the Commission's website. Copies of the transcript will be available in the formal case number 1162 docket. This concludes our formal case number 1162 community hearing. We thank you.